So now we're going to create the structure of what we like to see using components. First, I'd like you to take the challenge and create the structure of the app. I don't mean create exactly how it looks, but just the components with some dummy text inside of it. So for the search component, just make a search component that has the word search component in it. And for the movie cards, go ahead and just make a component called movie card or whatever you would like to name that component. Maybe try to nest components inside folders according to where components may be in the app. Also try to create them by hand and then also using the Angular CLI. This will help you get an even better grasp of creating your own Angular applications. So go ahead, pause the video, and create these components, and then we'll do it together. So how do you think you did? Does the structure make sense to you? If you came back in a month from now, would you be able to jump back in and modify something? Awesome. So let's go ahead and do it together. All right, so first we're going to make a new file, and we're just going to call this file header component, and this is going to be our header component for our application where you saw that nice little search button at the top. I'm just going to call that header, let's say header.components.ts and lowercase h. And we're going to save this inside our source file and then inside our app folder as well. And now we're going to go ahead and import component from Angular Core. And create our component with an inline style and an inline template. And the selector for our component is going to be app-header. And we're going to have an inline template. And we're going to put these two braces so we can go ahead and make it a multi-line template. Inside here, we're just going to type header for now. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and export a class called header component. And that's all we need for right now. Let's go ahead and import that inside our app module.ts. And then we're also going to put it in our declaration so we can use it inside our app component. And now let's open our app.component.ts file. Actually, let's open our app.component.html file. And we're going to take all this stuff out and we're just going to use that app header. And that's all we want to see. So now if we go back to our application, refresh, you should see that we have header. The next component we're going to make, we're going to use the Angular CLI, and that component is going to be the movie details component that we had with the poster on the right side and the details on the left. So let's go ahead and open our terminal, and we're going to type inside our applications topmost folder, and we're going to type ng gc, and we're going to call this component display movie. And we're going to have an inline style for this component. We do not want a test file for this component. We don't want a prefix for our component's selector. And we do not want to make a folder also for this component. That's great. So now if we open that display.component.html, and we're just going to say movie details for right now inside this component. And we're going to go to our app component.html, and we're going to go ahead and type display-movie, just like that. And if we go back to our application, you should see header and movie details. Perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and make the search component, and it's going to be about the same thing. So we're just going to take all that, except we're going to make a folder for this one. So we're not going to need the -- flat. And we're going to call it search. All right, and we're going to go ahead and open that. And we're just going to put in here search component. Let's go ahead and put it in some tags. And then inside our app.component.html, we're going to go ahead and use that search component. And if we go back to our application, we should see that we have our search component right there. Then remember there's lots of cards that show up inside our search component that are the previews to what we could select as a movie. So we're going to go ahead and make that by saying ng gc and then search, and we're going to put this inside the search folder and call it movie preview with an inline style. We don't want to make a folder for this one. We don't want a test file, and we also do not want a prefix. And now we're going to open our search component .html, and we're going to go ahead and put those movie previews in here. And we're going to put a few, so let's go ahead and put 4. And let's open our movie preview component and make sure that that selector is correct, which it is, and also our movie preview component.html. And we're just going to type in here movie preview, just like that, except let's make it an H5. Now, if we go back to the application, you'll see that we have our search component with our movie previews inside of it. Last thing we need to make is the footer, so let's go ahead and open our terminal again and type ng gc and footer. We do want an inline style for this. We don't want a test file, and we do not want to make a folder for this one as well. All right, and if we open that, you'll see that our selector is called app-footer. So we're going to go into our app.component.html, and we're going to say app-footer, just like that. And if we go back to our application, you'll see that we have footer works down there. Next up, we're going to go ahead and put the HTML and CSS for our components in there so we can actually start looking like our application.